Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome once again to Kardec Radio and our Divine Laws program, where we take half an hour once a week to understand how the wisdom of God governs the entire universe. Have we ever wondered what the rules are that keep the universe in perfect order and harmony? Have we wondered how God lovingly cares for every one of its creations, from the smallest ant to the Christ of the earth? If these are some of the questions for which we would like an answer, the study of the divine laws is meant to show us how God's wisdom operates both within our realm of action and the universal realm of action. So we are grateful to Kardec for cataloging, categorizing, organizing the divine laws, inspired and guided by the Spirit of truth and all of the loving spirits working under the governance of the earth. So this very moment for us, dear friends, is sacred, because it is as if we were being bathed by the wisdom and light of the Christ that is in fact materialized in the form of the Spiritist codification. So we, dear friends, may consider ourselves to be millionaires of the Spirit, for we are, every time we decide to instruct ourselves, investing in the stock market of the good, and we shall profit from this investment for immortality. So let us be grateful to God at this very instant, because we are now making a beautiful and wise decision to invest in the good and to inspire as well as empower ourselves to continue choosing the good, feeling the good, visualizing the good, and molding the good, not only for the present moment, which is most certainly a gift from God, but for many, many lives to come. So what a blessing, dear friends. It is with this spirit of gratitude to the Creator, knowing that we are co-creators destined to progress always, that we welcome each and every one of you with a warm embrace of fraternal light and fraternal love, also certain that the mentors are at this very moment visiting each and every one of us in our homes, allowing the very vibrations of the Christ to permeate our thoughts and feelings, so that we, as well as everyone else in our network, receives a gift of Christ's love and presence. What a blessing, dear friends. Let us then begin our study tonight. Tonight we are beginning one of the most beautiful universal laws, focusing on justice, love, and charity. In fact, this is the law of justice, love, and charity. Did you know, did we know, that for God, justice does not operate without love and charity? And what does that mean, beloved friends? That means that not only is God charitable towards us in allowing for us to reap the consequences of our own actions, but God prescribes a redemptive pathway for us to fulfill the law of justice through love. This is why Master Jesus affirmed to us 2,000 years ago that we could cover a mountain of sins through acts of love. This is how the law of justice, love, and charity operates. What a blessing. So let us begin our study of chapter 11 of the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec by reading tonight questions 873 and 874. If you have the book, dear friends, and you would like to follow along, these are the questions we will be referring to. Should you have any questions or comments and would like us to say hello specifically to you, feel free to write your comments and your name on the chat, and we will most certainly directly address you. Thank you, dear friends, and let us then begin. Question 873. In this question, Kardec asks, is the sentiment of justice to be found in nature itself, or is it the result of acquired ideas? Interesting question asked by Kardec. Is justice the result of our lived experiences, or is it innate to us? And the answer from the illuminated spirits working under the Christ is as follows. It is so ingrained in nature that you revolt at the thought of an injustice. Moral progress undoubtedly develops the sentiment, but it does not create it. God has placed it in the human heart. That is why you frequently find among simple and unsophisticated individuals notions of justice that are more accurate than those found among many men and women of knowledge. What a beautiful and illuminated answer from the spirits on high. They bring us two revelations, dear friends, that can help us understand God's wisdom operating within us. Number one, they tell us that the notion of justice is innate. Why? Because it is in our spiritual DNA. God has created us, molded us to yearn for equality, yearn for harmony amongst ourselves as we were created to live in society, to be interdependent, to support one another. This is why in Spiritism, through this beautiful immortal science, we learn that justice, to be just, is to respect the right of others. Beautiful. This is how, in the eyes of God, we may and shall sustain harmony, justice. In the eyes of the Creator, it does not privilege a certain position, a certain title, a certain figure, monetarily speaking, but rather God prioritizes respect. And it is through respecting us and teaching us to respect others that we maintain and collaborate to harmony. So the sense is innate in us, given to us directly by God, and it is independent, the sense of justice, of intellectual education. It is rather dependent on moral education. This is why there are some individuals who are simple, who have not been educated through the schools of the world, but who have a great sense of justice. Let us think of two illuminating examples for our own reflection and consideration. Example number one, of course, the Christ himself, the governor of this planet. He did not attend any formal schooling. He did not earn any degrees. He never held a high position. He didn't have a family. He didn't follow certain religious traditions that were in vogue at the time. But he was, in effect, the most just spirit to ever set foot on the earth. Why do we say that? Because he was able to listen to everyone, empower everyone, including women who were considered to be inferior at his time. And he didn't sugarcoat the reality of life to anyone. However, he never thought of himself. He always thought of serving others, and it was in serving others that he fulfilled the number one law in the constitution of our souls, which is for us to love one another, beloved friends. And yet, he didn't even have shoes most of the time. He didn't own a home. He didn't have a car, obviously, but he didn't even have a donkey at the time. So Jesus didn't focus on the material sense of justice or well-being, but rather he constantly invested in the good. And you may say, and we may say, but Carol, the bar is too high with Jesus. Don't take us that high. Come on, Carol, give us a break. And yes, of course, Jesus is our number one guide and model. But did we know that he came to earth not to show us how to live like an angel, but rather for us to learn and see what our full potential as human beings is, and that we can get there. So all we need, beloved friends, is to accept him as a model. Therapeutic question for us. Have we accepted Jesus as a model? Because if we say yes to this question, then our sense of justice, it will be aligned with that of God's. Why do we say that? Because Jesus, beloved friends, never imposed. As question 873 tells us, he had this innate sense of justice, so he could see the divine in other people and empower them to fulfill their reincarnatory plans, telling them that God loves them and is investing upon them. So, Carol, how can we be more just? We may be wondering together. In the immortal sense, because human laws are subject to change. If we look at laws, dear friends, from 2000 years ago, we can most certainly tell that the human laws have changed. We no longer enslave people left and right as we did before, for instance. So human laws are subject to change as we evolve. However, divine laws are unchangeable, immutable. So how can we invest in divine wisdom and law as incarnate beings? We can practice, beloved friends, looking at one another as immortal spirits. So rather than being in a relationship or in any relationship thinking what is in it for us, we rather walk into the relationship knowing this person is an incarnate spirit at the moment who is in our lives for a divine purpose. This person has a plan to progress in terms of their virtues. How can we help them discover their own divine potential? How can we serve them so as to spread love, being that love is the most beautiful and number one law in the universe? God's intelligence and wisdom is the most perfect expression of love, which guides us all. So, how about, dear friends, doing this exercise within the next 24 hours? Let us pick one person that is significant in our lives at the moment. It could be a family member whom we spend time with. It could be a person at work. It could be one of our closest friends, and let us meditate upon how we can support each other in finding the divine purposes for which we have been brought together. Let us also meditate how we can serve this spirit that God has granted for us to harvest a relationship with. If we look at each other in light of our divine potential and knowing that we are incarnated to love and to serve as well as to learn, we cannot go wrong. We will most certainly be just because we will no longer be trying to play God ourselves. What does that mean, Carol? That means, beloved friends, that we will no longer try to control people, places, circumstances in our lives. We will no longer impose our will upon one another, but rather we will align ourselves with God's presence in us, knowing that we did not incarnate to be served. We did not incarnate to impose. We did not incarnate to change others. Rather, we reincarnated to serve others. We reincarnated to love much more than we ever have. And we reincarnated to change no other rather than ourselves. So let us once again pick one person that is very significant to us and do the work of divine discovery within us and within them. How so, Carol? Let us ask our guardian angels, God, Master Jesus, to inspire us so we learn how to serve them more, how to love them more, how to find the good in them more. And if perchance we have the desire to control them or change them, we pray fervently so that we may have the strength and the courage to change ourselves first and foremost. In this way, we will be practicing justice, perhaps not in the human sense quite yet, but most importantly and definitely in the divine sense, dear friends. Let us then take the invitation from the mentors to heart and strive to become divine agents of immortal justice. What does it mean to become divine agents of immortal justice? It means to be agents of love, because as we've said, for God, love and justice operate as one. Beautiful, dear friends, and we know that we can be agents of justice in a sense of spreading love equally to harvest harmony, because we learned in question 873 of the Spirit's book that this sense of immortal, immutable justice is innate within us. What a beautiful sign of God's wisdom. Let us now, dear friends, move to our last question of tonight. Our last question is as follows. Question 874. If justice is a law of nature, how is it that individuals understand it so differently, to the point that what one person considers just seems unjust to others? Very good questions. How come we tend to have such different conceptions of justice? Answer from the spirits. It is because individuals frequently mix their passions with the sentiment, corrupting it, as happens with most other natural sentiments, making them see things from a false vantage point. So why is it that there is so much perceived injustice, or what is just to one person may seem unjust to the other? Because we don't yet, as human beings in evolution, as spirits in evolution, see justice from a spiritual perspective. We tend to see justice, beloved friends, from a materialistic perspective. And the materialistic perspective on justice hasn't reached the level where harmony is promoted across the board. From a materialistic perspective, there tends to be one party that takes advantage of the other party's situation. So that's not equally harmonious. This is why our notion of justice tends to waver at our current level of evolution. But then, how can we boost our understanding of justice? We may ask ourselves. Let us take Chico Xavier as an example. He did not complain about his illnesses. Chico Xavier, despite the fact that he was a great humanitarian, very charitable, 1000% dedicated to others, he dealt with physical illnesses constantly. By the way, on Friday, it will be Chico Xavier's birthday. Yes, dear friends. Happy birthday to him. So speaking of Chico Xavier, he never complained. Apparently, there's great injustice in having someone as dedicated to others as Chico Xavier was while incarnated experience so many hardships. But Chico Xavier himself already knew how to trust God, and his expectations of life were different from most of our expectations towards life. He didn't expect life to be a Disney World fantasy dreamland. He didn't expect to have the perfect marriage, the perfect career, the perfect cars, the perfect children, the perfect dogs, the perfect beach house, the perfect retirement plan, the perfect diploma. He didn't expect any of that, dear friends. So, when asked about how he dealt with his illnesses, his response shows us his great notion of divine justice. He blessed his illnesses, letting everyone know that he found his illnesses to be his great teachers, because every time he felt as though he may go astray from the divine pathway, the illnesses would restrain him and hold him back to then allow him to keep walking on the straight path. The straight path being the alignment with his reincarnatory plan. So he saw the difficulties as blessings, dear friends, because he saw the restraints placed upon him as guarantees that he would not go astray from the plan, the contract, the agreement that he signed with Christ, and first of all, his own consciousness prior to reincarnating. So he blessed the illnesses, he blessed the difficulties, because he saw the difficulties and the illnesses as instruments of discipline and harmony. Harmony in what way, Carol? Harmony with his own conscience, harmony with the laws of God, harmony with his reincarnatory plan, harmony with the agreement that he made before the many spirits he promised to assist. So, yes, dear friends, if we choose, like Chico Xavier, to have God at the center of our lives, then we are able to read life from a different angle or through different lenses, by means of which we come to understand that no difficulties equal punishments, but rather they equal lessons, opportunities for us to develop virtues and mature spiritually, thinking less of ourselves, because this is the purpose of a reincarnation in a planet of trial and expiations like the Earth. Because the Earth is still a planet of trials and expiations, beloved friends, we cannot expect our reincarnation to be a vacation. No, no. Our reincarnation is far from being a vacation. Our reincarnation is a series of tests, is comprised by a series of tests that are meant to put into the test the virtues that we are strengthening our souls to acquire. This is how come God allowed the pandemic to materialize on the earth, because it would be a test for us. What kind of test, Carol? A test of patience, faith, and resignation, to say the least. So, if we look at life from the perspective of the On High, then we shed expectations away of the passing happiness, the Disney World approach, and we then embrace the approach of the Christ when he said that his kingdom was not of this world, meaning this world is not the real life. This world is a world where we are going to school and taking tests is natural. So, how are we doing in our tests? If we were able to adjust our notion of justice tonight, we may score higher in the books of God, in the books of our eternal virtues and progress as we undergo new opportunities of growth in our lives. So we hope, beloved friends, that you feel empowered by God's goodness, that we feel empowered by God's goodness, and that we are able to discover and uncover God's goodness in every instance of our lives, knowing that God is just through love, educating us in the most kind and compassionate way possible. So, what is a gift that we received from God today as we already learned the lessons that this 24 hours had to teach us? Let us meditate on the good and keep feeling the good, because here on Kardec Radio, dear friends, we are always visualizing the good and molding the good as we nourish our souls together. So we invite you to stay tuned right here on Kardec Radio, because here there's always more for us to continue evolving and progressing towards the divine light. Many blessings, dear friends. Thank you so much for the gift of your presence and the gift of your company. And we already look forward to continuing our studies next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In the meantime, dear friends, we wish you many, many blessings. Bye for now.